So this whole thing happened when I was maybe 12. I am nearly 17 now. Me and my sister, who was 14 or 15 at the time, were staying home alone while our parents were at my little brother's hockey game. We lived in a fairly safe neighborhood. Hardly anything ever happened, everybody knew everybody, and almost everyone got along well and liked each other. So we felt safe as we didn't have a reason not to. The front door was locked, our back door locked, but our side door didn't lock. It was broken, but no one ever used it anyway, so my dad hadn't gotten around to fixing it. Me and my sister were in the living room watching TV and doing homework when we heard the fence outside of our house making some noise. It sounded like someone had jumped over the fence, so my sister looked through the blinds and sure enough someone had jumped the fence. Two people actually. They were dressed in mostly black, with like a hospital mask over their faces. We freaked out and hid in between the couches in the living room when we heard the front doorknob wiggle. Of course it was locked so it didn't open, but we knew whoever it was would go to the side door next and that one would open. In that moment I was the most terrified I had ever been, but once the door handle started jiggling loud enough my dogs had woken up. At the time I had a Tosa and a Rottweiler. One started barking, so did the other one, and eventually it just became pure chaos. That's when we heard them scream, "Shit, they got dogs." Then we heard the fence make the same noise as if someone jumped over it again. Later that night, a local gas station near my house got robbed by two armed men, and the news report showed the same people we had seen. Same outfits and everything, except this time we got to see their faces. Our dogs truly may have saved our lives that night. The funny thing is, our dogs are the biggest lovers. They may be loud and bark, but they wouldn't bite or attack anybody. This is the one time I'm very glad that these dogs breeds are associated with being quote scary and aggressive, because clearly they scared off whoever wanted to break in that night. This happened when I was 14. I'm 17 at the moment and still linger on this memory. I was home alone that night as my mom was working an overnight shift and my older brother didn't live at home at the time, so therefore I had the house to myself. I say it was maybe 9 or 9:30 p.m. and I was in my room working on homework and listening to music with my headphones in, loud enough to where I really couldn't hear things. I remember for a fact that all of the doors were locked and I stayed home alone pretty often, so I didn't have a reason to worry. Maybe an hour later, I decided to take my headphones out and take a break from homework. I heard noises in my kitchen and footsteps walking around downstairs, which was odd because my mom wasn't supposed to be home until 7 a.m. the next morning. But she could have taken an early night for whatever reason, but just to make sure, I locked my bedroom door and texted her, asking if she came home. It took her about 10 minutes to respond, but when she did, she said no, she was still at work and why I asked. At that point I was freaking out, because my mom and brother are the only ones with keys into the house, and myself of course. So I decided to text my brother. Sure enough, he said no, he wasn't in the house, so I told both him and my mom about the situation. And my brother wasn't far from the house, so he said he would be there soon and to call the cops. As I was trying to find a hiding spot in my room with my phone to call the police, I heard my name called from downstairs. That got me thinking. Did whoever was in the house know me personally? A family friend maybe? I didn't respond out of fear of who knew my name and was calling it, and I didn't recognize the voice. I called the cops and was on the phone with them when my name was called again, followed by, "I know you're up there." And I heard someone starting to walk up the stairs. Again, I didn't respond, but I was pure terrified. The police assured me they were on the way and to stay put. I was still texting my brother while this was all happening. He informed me he was 5 minutes away. That's when I heard the front door slam. After I heard the door slam, about 5 minutes later the police arrived and assured me it was them and that I could come out. Shortly after, my brother arrived back home. The police looked around the property and all over the house, but there was no trace of whoever was once here. However, there was damage on the door and lock from being forged open, and looked to be done by some sort of tool to pick the lock. Everything turned out okay, because nothing was taken oddly enough, but the upsetting part is whoever was in my house wasn't found. From that night forward, we got cameras installed and got a better lock. I am in university right now, but staying with my parents at their house for the summer. I was hanging out with one of my friends and we decided to go to a party. I met this guy around my age. We were talking and having fun, but it was nothing too serious. We exchanged phone numbers. We hung out a couple of times, but he became incredibly clingy right from the start, so I decided to distance myself in the hope that he would get the hint and back off. When I stopped responding, he sent me over 100 messages, with each message becoming increasingly more aggressive as time went on. Keep in mind, it had been less than 2 weeks since we first met. I finally responded and told him he needed to chill out. He appeared to calm down a bit after I responded, but he then asked for a phone call. I agreed and we talked for a while. He told me that he couldn't stop thinking about me, that I was the best thing that ever happened to him. Just a bunch of stuff that is way too intense to say to someone you barely know. I tried to let him down gently, reminding him that I was only home for the summer and wasn't looking for anything serious beyond a fling. But this only made him angrier. He started yelling at me, insulting me, calling me a slut. Basically a complete 180 from what he had been saying mere minutes ago. Then all of a sudden, the phone went silent. After a pause, he said in a quiet voice, "Bitch, you had better get ready because I am coming for you." And then he hung up the phone. This was very frightening because he knew my parents were out of town for the week and that I was staying at their house alone. However, he didn't know where my parents' house was because I was always the one driving, and he didn't know my friend either. So I thought he had no way of figuring it out, since, again, I'm normally living at school in another state. Regardless, I locked all the doors and shut the blinds just in case. After a while, maybe an hour or so, I fell asleep. When I woke up, I looked at my phone and saw a notification on my lock screen. It was from the Ring app, indicating there had been movement on my parents' camera. It was him. When he notices the camera, however, he left. I immediately blocked him on everything and reported the incident. I have no idea what he planned to do once he got here. It was terrifying to realize that he had come over when I was asleep and defenseless and completely unaware of his presence. As I would later find out, he was able to get my address from my phone number. Apparently he googled it and it returned my dad's name as the owner of the phone number, along with my parents' address. Since I am on my parents' phone plan, I guess it shows up that I still live here. This revelation was fucking horrifying as I never knew my phone number could reveal my home address. I am still extremely upset that this kind of private information is on the internet for anyone to find that is incredibly dangerous that websites will just give this away to anyone. Please learn from my mistakes and do not give anyone your phone number unless you trust them. I found out that you can get a free Google Voice number to text and call people, and that number can't be traced back to you so easily. My advice is to use a disposable number for anyone you're talking to that you meet informally or online. I still can't sleep at night. Hopefully this never happens to anyone else.